Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. As always, I'm Alec Cabrera. That's Mike Wolfgang. Matt Morrison might be stopping by here in a little bit as well. He said he might be on the show, so we'll see if that turns into a short appearance or if he actually comes on for the whole duration. We'll find out later on in the show. But Mike, MLB trade deadline continues to be the main storyline in the sports world right now. Obviously, we had Deshaun Watson that kind of took over sports news a little bit. But MLB was right back in there at the end of it to take away some storylines. But we forgot to do this yesterday on the show, so we're going to do it today. Bill Russell, unfortunately, has passed away, 88 years old. Said he passed away peacefully, natural causes type thing. So we're going to take a moment of silence to remember the greatest Boston Celtic of all time, one of the best basketball players of all time, and one of the faces of the civil rights era for the sports world. So we'll take that now. All right, let's get back to the show here, Mike. Let's start before we get into the trade deadline. That'll be the majority of the show. But how about the big news in the NFL today? The NFL has stripped the Miami Dolphins of their 2023 first-round pick. They've also fined the general manager, Stephen Ross, $1.5 million for tampering with Tom Brady and Sean Payton. I think they also lost another draft pick in there. But this is a huge thing to go against the Dolphins, especially all the reactions on Twitter from this as well, where that next year when the Dolphins, people think the Dolphins are going to have to go quarterback shopping, they're not going to have that first round pick available. So either they're going to have to make some deals elsewhere to get one of those, or if they go to retool this offense around Tua, how are they going to get a high-level player? This is a huge move against a team in the AFC East that looked like it was building up to be able to compete against the likes of the Patriots and the Bills. And this obviously doesn't impact the team right now, but future success, I think, could be a little lower than what it could have been thanks to this but move by the NFL.
I think you're looking at a spot where, part of it was the Brian Flores stuff where he was accusing them of paying for losses, paying them to lose.
They came out and said that part of it, they didn't find any evidence. There was nothing there that they had no witnesses basically that could attest to what Brian Flores was saying. This was not part of that. This was all based off of their tampering of trying to bring in Tom Brady and Sean Payton, obviously failing at both of them. So they obviously aren't very good at tampering, especially because they got caught. So.
Well, with the tampering part of it tied into, this is where I was going to lead that to, tampering part of it tied into the Brian Flores stuff. You got to give the NFL credit for doing something here, because tampering, that's a big part of, everybody talks about integrity of the game, that's a big part of it. You want to be able to do things, get guys that you are trying to target in the right way. They didn't do that. And like you said, they tried tampering. They obviously aren't good at it if it got out. They obviously aren't good at it because they didn't get the guys they wanted. So it didn't work out for them. That's my big thing is we talked about yesterday, the NFL kind of standing by what they preach. Sometimes people don't do that. They don't stand by what they preach. You can argue that with the Deshaun Watson case, but at least in this case, they actually put it for investigation.
No, this case, I think the timing of it is a bit, they put this out next day to try and, I think, kind of wash out some of that Deshaun Watson talk, put something else out there in the, NFL world with training camps, the Hall of Fame game. I feel like the NFL's really put a lot out there, especially in these last 12 hours, to kind of just mush in the Deshaun Watson stuff with preseason camps, the Hall of Fame game. This now big news, obviously, stripping Dolphins of this pick. It's also their 2024 third-round pick that they're going to lose. And Ross was fined the $1.5 million. He's also going to be suspended through October 17th. So he also can't attend any league meetings before 2023. So I think this really sets the Dolphins back a good step here from what they were building towards. Because, I think you look at this team and you look at the AFC East, and I think there's realistic question marks left with the Patriots going into this season. It seems like they're kind of imploding from everything we've heard out of training camps and Twitter rumors, which I know you can't always take at face value, but from everything I've heard that has come out of the Patriots camp so far, things aren't looking great. Mac Jones is going to be Mac Jones. He was a great quarterback this last year, but I think they're going to have some deficiencies all over the field. Miami very realistically could have taken can still take the second spot in this division, but I think this kind of dampers what they can do in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and when you're talking about, a first-round pick too, that's big.
And then that third as well. I mean, the next 2 seasons, you're going to lose 2 high draft picks. I mean, when you talk first and third round, those are the guys that are the building blocks of your franchise. Those are your franchise players, those first 3 rounds.
Yeah, and I think you're if they have a year this year with Tua, after they put a lot of talent around him, if they have a year like this where he doesn't take a huge step forward, like they think he can, they're betting on him. Some people doubt it. If he has that type of year, and they're forced to go out and try to get somebody else. Number one, you don't have the draft pick for this year. And number two, draft picks, future draft picks within, teams are making trades for draft picks. They want them in that year or the year after that, close, so they can try to get something together. That's a big draft pick to lose if you're going to try to even trade to get somebody too. You got to keep that in mind.
Right. Yeah, I think that is a big piece of it as well. You're losing trade value. Third round picks are one that, I mean, you can get a pretty good guy for a third round pick alone. I mean, we've seen just in the last couple of years, a third and a fifth rounder can get you a high level wide receiver, tight end, linebacker. Now they lose that chip. So yeah, they lose trade assets. They're going to lose players in this move. But to the point about Tua and what's going on with him in this situation, we did see a big step from year 1 to year 2, I think, for Tagovailoa. The yards increased by 800. The completion percentage went up by 3.7%, which isn't a ton, but keep in mind he was battling some injuries, and they weren't necessarily playing him in all the games last year, thanks to those injuries and injuries around the team and kind of an overall team struggle. Record has improved each year he's been starting quarterback. He had 6 wins his first year, 7 wins in his second. Interceptions, they were doubled last year, and that's something they're going to want to see cut back down. But I think what you're seeing here is going to be a similar situation to what the Browns had with Baker Mayfield in this offseason. Is you have a quarterback who is a good quarterback, and I don't think a lot of people can go against that, but he's not that guy. He's not the quarterback of the future, because when we talk in the NFL, you want to have a top 15 guy. Obviously, there's 30 quarterback positions. Only half of those can be in that top 15 quarterbacks in the league. So you wind up with half these teams throwing out good quarterbacks like Tua, like Baker, and obviously Carolina picked up Baker Mayfield, and we'll see how that whole situation turns out. Practice training camps have been looking good. At the moment, he's blowing away Sam Darnold in the quarterback competition. So I guess we can finally have the question answered of who's the better quarterback there, and it's Baker Mayfield, considering what they're doing against one another in practice with the same team, same offense, same scheme, everything there. But I think you're going to run into a similar situation with Tua Tagovailoa coming up here, especially this offseason. If you see minor improvement, but he's going to need to get that completion percentage above 70%. It's a hard mark to hit, but I think with the status that Miami's trying to build right now, I think they're entering into a win now mentality. It's enough building. We've come up long enough. We have pieces we feel like we should succeed, much like Cleveland did last season. If Tua doesn't deliver this year, his time in Miami is done. I think there's plenty of teams elsewhere, though, that would look to give Tua Tagovailoa his shot, his second shot, I should say.
And you know what? It's I think it's for him. Obviously, it's kind of a put up or shut up type of thing. Not that he's running his mouth, but just that type of feel, because you're getting praise from a guy.
He's been very quiet so far.
Yeah, and I'm not. I don't mean it that way, but it's almost that type of vibe where it's like you're getting this stuff from Tyreek Hill this all offseason that he's the most accurate quarterback he's ever had. He's some of the balls he's throwing him in training camp. He said some of the most beautiful balls he's ever caught. So you're getting that type of praise from a guy who's played with Patrick Mahomes. You'd like to think that means that he's progressing, especially the guy with Tyreek Hill around him. And some other weapons they went out and got this offseason too. Cedric Wilson from the Cowboys, who I didn't like losing. But if he can't do it, it's kind of a type of thing with Baker, like you said, because last year we were sitting here saying the same thing. If he can't do it with some of these weapons that they brought in, maybe it's time to explore other options. It's the same type of thing with Tua this year. I think if the Dolphins were to move on from Tua, I think I'd be more intrigued and I think you're going to see this from other teams too, depending on the type of year he has. You're going to be more intrigued to try to get a guy like Tua over Baker because I think there's more upside with Tua than Baker. I really do.
I think right now, though, Baker's better quarterback, but I do think there's a lot of potential out there for Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, obviously, in college, when we saw him surrounded by weapons, his accuracy was premier. He was one of the best quarterbacks in recent memory in college football. So we know the talent is there. I don't think we've seen it fully translate, though, to the NFL. And you could say, hey, perhaps that's on the offensive scheme with Miami, but it's a win now situation. He's got to take it this season. Like you were saying, they brought in the right pieces. They feel that they can win with this piece they have now. And I guess the only thing now with the 2 picks getting taken away, I mean, you also kind of lose the ability to package a second and third and a 4th rounder to potentially get a 1st rounder in this next upcoming draft as well. You don't necessarily have as much wiggle room to play with when it comes to maneuvering out around draft picks. Is the NFL may have actually bought Tua more time because you're not going to be able to take that 1st round quarterback in this next draft class for Miami. So you might see, depending on what our quarterback free agent class looks like this upcoming season, Tua's gotten more time bought for him.
Yeah, we'll see.
That would mean next season he's playing on borrowed time.
It's the other thing too. It's kind of like he's having 2 pretty much audition years. Depending, like you said, depending on what happens free agency, depending on what happens in the draft too. If they're able to swing some type of deal, I don't know how that would happen, but
I mean they have a lot of really good players on that team, and I don't think it's that far out there to say they could potentially move one of them to try and get a 1st rounder or at least get a 2nd and 3rd. Then they can package a 2nd and 3rd. With a couple other picks down the line to get that 1st rounder now if they really need it. But I don't think they're in a spot where they have to go out there and burn the entire team just to get a 1st round pick. I think they can sit with Tua an extra year if they need to and see if he develops. Because I think 3 years, normally your typical span, but I'd give Tua the benefit of the doubt, give him that 4th year, and see what he's made of. That's how long Cleveland waited around with Baker Mayfield. It was that 4-year span. That seems to be the good tell. Is this guy going to sit? Is he going to fit in the system? Let's figure out, coaches, get the players. Once all that's set, what can this quarterback do with it? I think that 4-year gap is the right spot here for Tua. If he doesn't get anything accomplished in the next 2 seasons, yeah, I mean, he's going to get shown the door. That's just the business. But I definitely think they should wait around and see if he develops into the guy they drafted. Because he has the mentality. He has the pedigree. He's coming from the right colleges. We know what Alabama produces. But much like Ohio State, Bama doesn't produce quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, that's true. And I just want to say, can you imagine if Sean Payton and Tom Brady ended up together in Miami? That would have wrecked the league.
Would have, yeah.
That would have been awesome.
Instead, you get Tom Brady down in Tampa, and that's phenomenal down there.
Yeah, that would have been really cool. A lot of people probably wouldn't have liked it, but it would have been cool to see.
More tampering news, though. This outside of the NFL, Jalen Brunson in the New York Knicks now looking into tampering stuff there. Obviously, we're kind of out of the NBA mode. Figured I'd just throw that in here just for a moment. But back to the NFL, Mike. Your Cowboys lost a pretty big wide receiver. I believe it was yesterday. James Washington went down with a fractured foot getting surgery. I think they said he might miss a couple weeks of the regular season, but should be good to go. Good way through. But quite a few guys have started dropping now that we're in training camps.
Yeah, that too. And there was reports yesterday that Najee Harris had some type of foot injury with the Steelers. So I think he got carried off. I think he's going to be okay. I don't think he's going to miss too much time. But with the Cowboy thing too as well, that hurts because that's a guy you bring in after you lose a couple receivers like Cedric Wilson, like I just said.
And Amari Cooper,
who I think CeeDee Lamb can be a number one.
Oh, but I'm right there. CeeDee Lamb was my favorite wide receiver coming out of that class. And
he has that wow power. He has that star power that the route running, everything, the connection he has with Dak. But that's a big piece to lose.
He reminds you of Oh man, brain just died. Oh well.
Give me a hint.
The Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones. That's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking of. Doesn't necessarily have burner speed. He's got really good speed, but it's that route running and footwork that you really see in star wide receivers in the NFL that don't have the physical nature, but they have the skill set that just dominates. Cooper Kupp. Yeah, he's got some pretty good speed, but it's his footwork and his route running ability and his ability to read those defenses and make adjustments on the fly that makes him one of the top wide receivers in football. I think CeeDee Lamb has the potential to continue to develop into a player of that caliber.
And I don't think people understand that part of it. That's what separates people from being good to great receivers, is that the route running, the quickness on point when you're making cuts and turns in your routes. That's what makes you great. It's not some necessarily making sick catches and highlight catches. That's, because I look at when Cooper Kupp makes these cups and catches in the playoffs. I went against Tampa Bay. He makes these moves and gets wide open. That's what makes good receivers great receivers.
Yeah. A quarterback would much rather be throwing to a wide open wide receiver than a man in double coverage that he knows has maybe a 33% chance to bring that ball down. That quarterback would rather put it right there on the money. No, he's got probably a 93% chance to make that catch in space as long as that ball's on the right spot. That's the real difference here. It's how you're looking for your quarterback. You can have a really great wide receiver, but if he doesn't know how to get open for his quarterback, he's never going to get showcased and he's going to get lost in the rough.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, imagine how many Browns wide receivers could have been really amazing in the last 20 years, but just never got really past the Brown system.
Well, I mean, Josh Gordon threw himself, but.
Well, Josh Gordon, yeah.
But I see what you're saying. He would have been, I don't know if he didn't screw himself, but and if he had a better quarterback, he would have been. That would have been sick.
Can you imagine if, Josh Gordon came into the league in New England instead of in Cleveland? I mean, career path is completely different at that point. Being in Bill Belichick's system right out of the gate, paired up with Tom Brady. I don't know. Could have been an interesting what-if scenario.
Yeah, definitely.
But, Mike, 20 minutes in here. In about 15 minutes, I think we're going to have to step into college basketball. A big recruit here in the state of Ohio making a decision at the 2:30 mark. Let me pull up the information as I knock half my desk over. But we have Devin Royal making his announcement between Ohio State, Michigan State, and Alabama. Number 14 small forward, number 2 in the state of Ohio, and he's on ESPN's top 100 list. He's making his announcement here in 12 minutes, so I think once that comes out, we might have to step aside and take a look at that because Ohio State already got the number 1 prospect from the state of Ohio, so you got to love what Chris Holtman's doing recruiting-wise.
I think that's what we but discussed when they went out of the tournament, that it's, he's a good coach, has a good system, but it's getting that next step type of talent, and I think he's starting that now, like you just said.
And hey, I mean, Jim Tressel built Ohio State back in the early 2000s with in-state guys. It's how you get that program restarted. Dominate your in-state recruiting, and then you can take on Texas, California, Florida, New York. That's when you can expand once you establish that in-state presence, because I mean, frankly, Ohio State basketball, they've had good players, but nothing to the caliber of what we might be seeing here in a very short extension. Gene Smith, athletic director at Ohio State, has made the comment that he likes the direction Chris Holtman's going with the program. He's loved everything done so far. So question marks about Chris Holtman being on the hot seat, I think we're kind of just waved off here with Gene Smith and everything that's coming out about his thoughts about Chris Holtman. So
we said this
George Washington the third, though, 4-star prospect from Dayton, committed to Ohio State. Devin Royals from Pickerington. And
we said so many times on this show, you start from inside and then you work yourself out in terms of recruiting. If you can't do it in your backyard and recruit good in your backyard, how are you going to recruit nationally? You got to start from the inside out.
I mean, you even see this in Major League farm systems in baseball. I mean, you talk about how many guys have come from the Mahoning Valley Scrappers. Maybe they're not, necessarily homegrown talents playing high school here. Some of them did in the state of Ohio. But I think you kind of expand on that a little bit when you talk major league farm systems. You have to build your farm system here. They build it in the state, in their programs, before moving them up to the next level. Farm systems, kind of that same thing as, taking these guys out of the local high schools to move them into the next level.
And I think that's what you see. I'll use the baseball analogy. I think that's what you see with the two teams that our favorite teams here. If you're a team that normally can't keep people, that's what you have to do, is have a strong balance, because some guy walks and you can't sign people like Cleveland or Pittsburgh. They don't really sign too many people. That's how you get big name people to come, is having a good return to give people. And I think that works the same way as recruiting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's transition here into baseball, as Matt Morrison was about to join us. I guess he's not anymore. But, Mike, the big news so far today on the trade deadline's final day. We're coming down 3.5 hours until things close out. But Juan Soto and Josh Bell have been dealt to San Diego for left-handed pitcher Mackenzie Gore, outfielder Robert Hassel III, shortstop C.J. Abrams, and outfielder James Wood, along with right-hand pitcher Jarlin Sasana. So Washington, San Diego making that deal. There was an extra piece that was supposed to be a part of it originally, but the player had Washington on his no-trade list, so that part of the deal doesn't end up going through. But from what I got right now from the CBS 2022 MLB trade deadline tracker, this is the official deal that's gone through now.
Well, it's the official deal too, and according to Jeff Passan too, they're still working on the what major league player is going there, because it was supposed to be Eric Hosmer. It's on no trade clause, so they're still going to get one more player, I believe, from what I understand, the Nationals. But what's up, Matt?
What's up? I'm on my way home from work. How's everybody doing?
We're doing all right here, Matt. What are your thoughts on the Juan Soto move? Juan Soto and Josh Bell getting dealt to San Diego.
I love it, man. That's why I hopped on here. I really wanted to talk about this. And, they're going to have a huge package, coming their way, too, the Nationals. I forget the specific players, but they got some pretty decent players coming back their way that they can just start fresh with, rebuild with those guys and draft more. But, man, you got Josh Bell and Juan Soto added to the roster with Eric Hosmer, Manny Machado, and of course Fernando Tatis Jr. I love it. They're going to make a push. These are the guys to do it. So, Matt,
as you said that with Soto, and here's ESPN's projected lineup. Let me run through it for Padres. You got leading off Jurickson Profar, Juan Soto, then Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, Josh Bell, Jake Cronenworth, Luke Voigt, Austin Nola, and Trent Grisham. That's lineup
a sick lineup.
Anybody. That can compete with anybody.
How far are they out of first?
They're not going to catch the Dodgers, but they may be able to beat them in the playoffs. I think they're like 12, 10, 11, 12 back, something like that. But you put this lineup, I can make the argument I could put this lineup against the Yankees and Dodgers for how deep and good this lineup is. Even some guys on their bench too, which I don't have pulled up, but that lineup alone is crazy. You're seeing all of these lineups that are contending teams right now. They are all-star type of lineups. I think that's what you kind of have to see with teams trying to win World Series in baseball these days.
Yeah. But we got more trades. What's the deadline is not until 6:00 tonight, so I expect a couple more trades to come through. But I don't know if you guys talked about Houston yet, but man,
no, we're
Houston
just getting into
already.
that.
I still got something with the Padres too.
I still got something with the Padres. Let's give it to Mike.
We haven't gotten into that yet.
No.
Okay.
Well,
all right, cool.
With their return, I think that was as good as the return as they were going to get. Like I said, we'll see what the major league player is they get back. It's not going to be Eric Hosmer. I think with that trade, Mackenzie Gore, you ran through with Robert Hassel and C.J. Abrams, James Wood, and Jarlin Susana, or how you say his last name. If I said it wrong, I think it's a good, probably the best trade they probably could have gotten. That's probably what they were looking for from any type of teams. I think it's better than what the Cardinals could have put together, considering two guys that they gave Pittsburgh last night. I think that's the best deal they're going to get. And I think you're in a position where, if Eric Hosmer has a no trade clause, now you get a guy with Josh Bell. Does that mean Eric Hosmer is going to be gone now? They're going to shop him because Josh Bell's in this projected lineup with ESPN. He's going to be in that lineup starting at first base. Are they going to try to swap out, maybe get a bullpen arm out of Eric Hosmer? Well, that's an interesting part to see too, is what they do with him. Because it's clear that they're trying to move him. That just brought in somebody else. Now it's in a position where maybe they do try to move him.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Padres done a really great set Obviously, Nationals are in a rebuild mode, so we'll see how they develop these next couple of years. But I think when you talk about dominant teams right now, San Diego, they are making the moves to clinch that second spot in the NL West, and most likely will be the number one wild card potential with Atlanta over there as well. They're doing a really great job staying in that conversation as well, and currently hold the lead in the National League for that wild card spot. San Diego second, Philadelphia third, but these moves right now for San Diego are to clinch that wild card spot, and I think when you continue to look on to see where their potential goes for San Diego, these moves are to win a World Series this season. They're not looking to make this a wild card year this year and then get to the postseason and win the whole thing next year. This is putting all our cards in one pile. You're going all in. Spend everything right now. Let's go win, because we don't have the money to compete for 5 years against New York and Los Angeles. We have a team that we can win with now. We're going out there. We're spending the money to compete with the high level teams this season. I'm loving the moves from the Padres.
And Alec, I think the Padres saw that, because you're getting Juan Soto. Suppose hypothetically think you're getting him for 3 postseasons this year and then 2 more after that. So you have, I think that adds what you're saying is it's all in type of move. They don't have the money to compete with the Dodgers and the Yankees. So it's a spot where you're getting him for 2-3 years. This is our window now. And you look at the last couple of years, what they have acquired. Clevenger from the Indians. They got Sean Manaea, or the pitcher, I think this past offseason. They got him. Yu Darvish. Manny Machado. Now they got Josh Bell and Juan Soto, and there's some other Josh Hader yesterday. There's some other names I'm forgetting too. It's not even just this year. These last couple of years, they've really tried to go all in, and I think this is a type of move that could put them over the top. We'll see what happens in the postseason. Anything happens, but this is the type of move that kind of separates them from some other teams.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Matt. What are your thoughts on the direction the Padres are going right now? In the postseason.
Obviously, going off what you said, they are pushing for the playoffs. This is the year to do it. They're going all or not. They're going big, go home. That's what they're doing. And I think with those two guys, especially Josh Bell. Josh Bell, Mike, you know him a lot. This guy got it done in Pittsburgh, and he's just too talented to be on a team like Washington. Same thing with Soto. They don't deserve to be on those teams. That's why I feel bad for the likes of Mike Trout and especially Shohei Ohtani. They don't deserve to be with those teams. They deserve to be on teams that are going to go out there and win the World Series. I definitely agree with that.
Or at least make the playoffs.
At least make the playoffs. Mike Trout only made the playoffs once. So I like it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into what Houston's been doing. Mike, I know you're real big into this, so I'll let you take over this Houston segment. But they've acquired some big names here. They brought in Will Smith, left-handed pitcher, sent out Jake Odorizzi to Atlanta, brought in Robbie Grossman to send out Chris Englund with Detroit. They were busy on the calls yesterday. We got a pending trade as well with Boston. They're sending they brought in Christian Vasquez, still working out the details on who's getting sent back. They brought in Trey Mancini and Jaden Murray while making a 3-team trade with Baltimore and Tampa. This was all just moves from yesterday as well. So they've been busy on the phones. What are your thoughts on this Houston team, Mike? I know you like them.
Well, I've said the last couple of times we were on the show talking about baseball, I think, to me, they are the front runner to win the World Series. Maybe now with the Padres, things that kind of makes a different type of argument, but at least in the American League, I think they're my favorite. You talk about bringing a guy like Trey Mancini. That's a good big pickup. A lot of teams wanted him. There was questions if he was going to even get moved or not. He ends up getting dealt to Houston. Christian Vasquez, I think, that caught me off guard too. I didn't think the Red Sox were even shopping him. I didn't really even think the Astros needed a big catching change, honestly. Then you get a guy like Will Smith, who, Matt, we saw last year. He closed out the World Series in that last game to clinch it for the Braves. He was the type of guy last year. I remember me and you were talking. Yeah, we were kind of discussing their bullpen in the postseason last year. It was kind of iffy and inconsistent. It turned up in that World Series and even the League Championship Series. He was a big part of it. And really, the last time the Astros got real serious bullpen arms, I know it was 2017, the whole cheating stuff. But last time they were serious about putting stuff in their bullpen, they went out and won a World Series. I think that's a big piece for them to get. And I think all three of these are really good, solid trades for them. And I think it separates them too, and I think it adds them in that conversation where I know a lot of people talk about Yankees, but go ahead.
They're like already a fantastic team, and to add those guys, I think Mike, I know you've been talking Houston's going to go to the World Series and stuff. I'm right there with you. I think they're better than the Yankees. I do. And
I'm not going to sit here and guarantee it.
Nobody wants to talk about Houston anymore. Nobody cares about them. After the whole cheating thing, nobody's even turned an eye to look at them. A lot of people forget that they made the World Series just last year. They lost it, but hey, they were still there. I think they're trying to make a statement like, hey, we're back. We're doing things the right way. And we made a huge mistake by, breaking the law, but using signs to cheat. And I think they're also putting out there like, hey, we really didn't have to cheat. We're a skillful team, no matter what. We didn't have to do that. So now they're back and they want to do it the right way.
And I think it's a thing where, again, I'm not guaranteeing anything because it's playoffs. Any team could lose, any team can win. But it's their ability to kind of plug guys in because they go out and get a guy with Trey Mancini. You had, they've proven, even though they didn't win the championship, they've proven with Correa and who's the other one they lost? Correa and Springer, that they can get back there at least. They did that last year. They lost them in free agency. They're plugging some guys in. They're still winning. I think all three of these moves are really good moves. They were my favorite before this, and I think this separates them now. I know the Yankees went out and got Frankie Montas. I don't know if we'll touch on that. I know how good they are. Aaron Judge is on a tear. I think he has like 43 home runs after last night. He's on the break. He was on a pace to hit like 60 plus. But I think this really separates them. I think the Astros can get it done in each way. They have the Yankees number. Not that matters in the playoffs, but I just had to throw that in. All three of these moves are really good. And you can throw Trey Mancini in there with a guy like Kyle Tucker, who they have in right field, Matt, who's fast. He's one of the better defenders in the league, in that position in the league. He can hit. Anybody in this lineup too can hit too. We just talked about the Padres. Anybody in this lineup can go off on a night too.
Yeah. Any guy in their lineup went off last time, and now that they added those guys, they're rolling. And what do we got over here? Alec, you awake?
What?
It looked like you were sleeping.
No. Sorry, I'm dealing with something else.
Oh, you're okay.
That's all right. Go ahead. I'm about to be home, so I'm going to close out, and then I'll come back in once I get situated.
All right, when you come back, we'll talk Cleveland Guardians at the deadline.
Yes! Yeah.
All righty, Mike. Well, I'll jump in a little bit here on the Houston stuff. I love the move, and you've talked about you think that they're a team that can beat the Yankees, obviously, as they have been undefeated against them in the regular season so far, and you've made it very clear here that they are your World Series favorite. I'm very close on this one. I'm not 100% sure how to feel about this team in total because the Yankees have been so good against everybody else. And you do have the potential scenario that the Yankees or that the Astros won't get that chance to play the Yankees in the postseason before one of the two teams gets eliminated. So while you're talking about how great this Houston team is, in their recent success, they've been in the postseason a lot, and they've been to a lot of World Series recently. I think you'd still have that potential for a letdown this season because, kind of what you're talking about, they're building up so much. I feel like a lot of the years we're going into the postseason with the Astros, they're a quiet team, flying a little under the radar. They're one of the best teams in baseball, but you don't really hear them talked about a lot, especially in the last couple of years because of their whole scandal. Nobody wants to talk about the Astros, but seeing all of these moves that they're throwing in here right now to try and make themselves a contender, I think it worries me because I think it changes the dynamic of Houston too much going into this postseason. And while I really do think that they have a bright future and I think they can make some noise here in the postseason, and I have no doubts that they're going to be in that postseason, I don't see them winning that World Series. I don't see them getting there. I think I don't want to say they're trying too hard, but I feel like they're pushing too much at the moment. And sometimes when you push too much, the pressure rises and then those pipes burst and your foundation falls apart. And I feel like they're getting away from what's made them successful in the last couple of years.
That's a good argument, and I think when you bring in three pieces like this in separate trades, and you bring in talent of this caliber, that's a fair question to have. Is how is it going to change dynamics? It's going to change dynamic. Just in what way? How are these guys going to plug in? How are you going to use them? Where are you going to put them in the lineup? Where are you going to play them on for most of their nights in the lineup? That's a good part to look at. But I think when you're, we talk about with great players in any sport. We use this in basketball a lot with LeBron. I think when you plug in good players that are all-stars, they're going to find ways to figure it out. Right. Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman, and you still have Justin Verlander there. They're going to find ways to figure it out. At least you would think so. It happens more often than not. But there's always that question, like you're saying, and it's a fair statement that how's it going to work? How's it going to plug in?
I just think when you look at a team that's so solid right now and what they've got going, and guys every night that are fitting in the system, things are going a certain way. To make all of these changes at one time, especially, you're not going to be able to put one guy in here for a week, see how he fits, then change it out here a little bit, see how it fits. It's hey, you're the top of the card, and you got some guys right below you trying to close in and potentially take that spot away from you in the West. In Seattle, you don't really have time to slip up. I don't think you're going to steal the top seed away from the Yankees, but they're only a couple of games back from being that number one seed and having that home field advantage all the way through the postseason. So I think there's a lot riding on the next 2 weeks for the Astros.
And I think too that when you bring a guy like Christian Vasquez, the two catchers had Martin Maldonado, who's a veteran, who's been there a couple years, and Corey Lee, who I think is a backup, but he's been getting some chunk of the starts. When you bring a guy like Christian Vasquez, who's been on good teams in Boston, was on that World Series team, you bring a guy like him in to work with guys like Justin Verlander, Garcia, who's the second best pitcher, could be an ace on a lot of different teams if it wasn't for Verlander. That's a good move to bring in a presence behind it. I think we keep hitting on the head, and I don't think it can be hit enough, is how important catching is, especially in the playoffs. Being able to frame things, being able to work with guys, being able to work with the most
important position in all of baseball.
It is, and being able to work with bullpen arms. That's where also I was going to go to with their bullpen with Will Smith. Bring in quality bullpen arms to any contending team this point of the year with the deadline. That's never a bad thing. You loading up on bullpen arms, even starting pitching. I've said this how many times. You could have all the offense you want. Pitching is the name of the game. That can only better a team when you bring in a guy like Will Smith, who was just in the World Series last year against the Astros. That's
clearly they brought him in here because they didn't want to face him again. That's the real story there.
Yeah, I think they did a good job. I do. The only one I kind of question is Trey Mancini, because there is that fit. Their outfield is kind of established. Maybe he goes to a DH type of role. We'll see where they fit him, but I think they did a good job with every move.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing right now, when you look at what Houston needs, the answer is runs, because their bullpen's right there next to the Yankees, but the run differential for Houston's 114. New York Yankees are 212. The Yankees have almost scored 100 more runs than the Astros on the season. So I think that move, especially with Mancini, more of a DH type spot, looking for runs. They're buying runs right now is what's going on. You're looking for guys that can get on base, get you runs. That's the direction I think they were going with this move, because no one's going to beat the Yankees unless you can keep up with their offense this year. They look like one of those teams that is primed and ready out of New York. And every time I think you see a New York team at this point in the season be this dominant, you got to watch out for them to make that final run.
It's going to be a good race regardless. American League is a lot more, we talked about it last week, it's a lot more interesting than the National League right now.
The NL...
It just got better with Soto, but
it just got better, but I think it still sucks. It's too top heavy.
It is.
I mean, I think when you look into the American League, I mean, you're looking 5 teams right now in the AL East that are 500 or better. 3 teams in the Central 500 or better. The AL West, okay, a bit of a disappointment, but Texas is just under 500. LA, they're a little farther behind. They should be a lot better than what they are. And then you look over into the NL East, and you got 3 teams above 500, Central 2 teams above 500, West 2 teams above 500. Now, there's obviously a lot of teams still kind of in that mix, but the wild card race in the West side is really slowing down. I think we're getting down to those couple teams I think we're going to know who it is. I think the third spot is still open between Philly, St. Louis, and San Francisco, but I think you can practically eliminate Miami on down to Colorado, Arizona, Chicago, Cincy, Pittsburgh, and Washington. That's pretty close, but then you go over to the American League side, and Seattle's got that third spot, but they're only a game ahead of Cleveland, 2.5 ahead of Baltimore, 3 against above Boston. You can pretty much put the next 4 teams in line as potential wild card teams down that list. And, when I mentioned over there in the National League, there's only 2 teams right now that aren't in a wild card spot that I think you can realistically talk about making that final run here in the season to grab one of those spots, because Miami on down, I don't think has the talent to do it. But then you go over to the American League and, you got 5 teams still, 10 wins back or closer in Texas. I would love to see them make that final push. Obviously, they were my prediction to be one of those teams in that wild card. They were my wild card team. I like Texas this season. They haven't exactly been there. Their pitching is still lackluster, but their run scored puts them right up there next to the teams of Houston and Minnesota. If they had any bullpen, that Texas Rangers team, they would be in this conversation for a wild card spot, potentially a division lead as well, with how we've seen things break down. So the American League is just a lot better, a lot more entertaining to watch, and I feel like it's been that way the last couple of years.
There has been actually some news about the Juan Soto stuff.
All right, go for it.
Jeff Passan with Eric Hosmer out of the Juan Soto trade after rejection of the deal to the Washington Nationals. The Red Sox actually swooped in and picked him up. So we'll see. Eric Hosmer's going to Boston. Finance part of it's unclear. Some other details are unclear, but it seems like Eric Hosmer is going to Boston.
All right. Well, that's a good move for Boston because, as I was just talking, they're one of those teams still in the wild card hunt. They're only 3 games back in their 500 team. Obviously, the schedule is hard because of the division that they're playing in. But I think if you look at their setup right now, they got a good shot to potentially make that noise and take that wild card spot. Obviously, they're going to have to jump over Tampa Bay because 2 teams in the same division are already in the wild card spot in Toronto and Tampa Bay. So they're going to have to jump Baltimore, then jump Tampa, and potentially jump Toronto. So I don't know if that's going to be enough to make this move work out. But I don't think Boston's trying to give up the season just yet. I think they're going to push this thing as far as they can to try and grab that wild card spot until it's out of reach.
Yeah, I think they're still trying to.
I think they're reluctant to pull back and bring those young guys up from the farm system, especially with September call-ups only a month away.
And I don't, they're kind of, to me, it's kind of like they're retooling on the fly here because they're 500. They're still in the wild card race. But it's like they get rid of Christian Vasquez last night, but then they bring in Tommy Pham, and now they got Eric Hosmer. So they lost some guys that were important. They bring in some other guys that they think are going to make some moves. So I feel like they're kind of shuffling some pieces out, to try to, wake up here and get out of the 500 area and try to make a run here. Because, talent-wise, let's face it, they should be ahead of Chicago. They should be ahead of Baltimore. They should be ahead of Cleveland, talent-wise and market-wise. They should be in that position. I think that's where these moves they're trying to get with these type of moves here. I still think that if they're going to try to compete and get a wild card spot, maybe even try to get in front of that, I don't think it's going to happen because I don't know what's really left. But they need a starting pitching or any starting pitcher right now because that's what they're really that's what they've been lacking for a couple years now. With Chris Sale being hurt a lot, they don't really have too much behind that. I think that's their biggest problem.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, let's jump into Cleveland here as we got Matt back on the show. Matt, before you start talking here, because I know you want to get into this. This came out earlier today from Will Burge, where he works at Barstool Sports for Barstool Cleveland, has sources close to the Guardians, and he said that the expectation is that once this core arrives that they're working on, there's going to be some regression within the Guardians organization. So they're feeling that the playoffs are within reach, but the real contention window is the next few years. That's the way the Guardians are building now. So I don't think we're going to see them make these jumps at the deadline. They really haven't jumped on the deadline the last few years. They like getting those guys earlier in the month, grabbing the farm system type players here at the deadline and bringing those guys up rather than bringing in new guys. So Matt, what are your thoughts on what Cleveland's doing here coming into the trade deadline tonight in 3 hours and 15 minutes when that final bell strikes at 6?
So, if we're gonna make a move, it's gonna be Framil Reyes. We already sent him down to Columbus.
Yeah, he's been sent to AAA.
Yep, he's been sent to AAA. He's been abysmal. He is not doing too well. We brought up rookie Will Benson, and Oscar Gonzalez will be back too. I love those guys. I love our young rookie core, and I totally agree with you. I think we can make the playoffs, but wait in a couple of years. This team's gonna be sick. Like,
I mean, I think you look at the farm system right now, especially Akron. When Akron Rubber Ducks has a great farm system rocking and that team is playing really good ball, you see that translate to the Cleveland organization. And really, it's 2 years. I feel like when Cleveland's playing its best, it's not when Columbus has the best part of the farm system. It's when AA and Akron is really showing off.
Yep.
And you've really seen that this year. I think they were at or near the top of their standings as well. And we've seen some top prospects over there hitting some absolute nukes. Just yesterday, one of the Guardians' top prospects came back from a Tommy John surgery. It was a 2020, I think, first-round pick. And he came out there through one inning and sent him down 1, 2, 3 in order.
The pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Is it Espinal?
I believe so. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was 2019, 2020. I was reading about that today.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's gonna be something. Wait till he comes up. The dude's throwing 100 miles an hour, like repetitively. So just imagine him.
The Guardians are gonna have quite a few 100-mile-an-hour arms.
Yeah, we do. So I mean, it's not just the guys who are coming up; it's the guys behind them. Like, Cleveland has always been known for their serious talent within the farm system. They've always done good with draft picks. So
yeah, I mean, they really haven't. I think the biggest thing with Cleveland is they're not a free agent mover. They're not making these moves to the deadline. They will make 1 or 2, but this isn't a team you're going to see jump out there and go for a complete retool. They don't have the well, they have the money, but they don't want to spend the money that way. They want to give money to. I don't know who they want to give money to actually, because they never do.
Yeah, it's true. But
we'll give it to a star every 5 years. Oh, actually, speaking of Cleveland Guardians stars, happy birthday, 40 years old to Grady Sizemore.
Awesome, man!
I saw that on Twitter today.
Shirt too.
How can you not love Grady Sizemore?
Oh man, I have his bobblehead right here in front of me. So, I love Grady, man. He was awesome. But I mean, Cleveland knows what they're doing. You know, we think we traded away big names, but we're actually getting more draft picks out of it. I mean, look what we got out of the Lindor trade. I mean, Ahmed Rosario and Andres Jimenez are doing pretty damn good right now.
I mean, Rosario was the guy they kind of made that move for with Lindor. It was, hey, we're bringing this guy in. No, he's not going to be that guy right now, but give him a year or two. And it only took a year for him to jump into that spot.
Rosario just walked off for us last night, and you know, Jimenez made the All-Star team. He was an All-Star starter. And what's Lindor doing right now? I mean,
the Mets are
still doing pretty good. But I mean,
Mets are a contender right now.
Mets are 65 and 37, but Lindor's not doing anything, Matt.
They're a contender, but like Lindor, I mean, yes, he's still a great player, but you know, everybody thought we're like, oh, we're so screwed, we got rid of Lindor, but you know, I mean, not really. We're doing all right. You know?
I mean, he's having his best hitting season since
2015. Yeah, but he'll do that.
He'll do that. Yeah, well, he's got as many RBIs as he did in that 2019 season already, so he's doing just fine.
You're just not hearing about it because the Mets are loaded.
So are we.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think Cleveland can really be mad with how Francisco Lindor's situation moved.
We've always
moved out because we lost 1 star just to get 2 more. So I think the trade kind of worked out, and that's always the thing with Cleveland. They make these trades that initially are like, oh my God, no. And it goes back, with the Cavaliers moving Kyrie Irving, and you go, oh, what a terrible trade. But then everything that Cleveland ends up turning it into, I think you really got to give some props to ownership and general managers in Cleveland, because they turn a trade that seems like nothing into something special. And when you're a small market, mid-market level team like Cleveland, you have to make those kind of moves, and you have to have a good front office that can find talent, can scout well, and bring those guys in and fit them into your system and develop them. And that's what Cleveland's kind of hung their hat on the last couple decades.
Yes, they have.
Mike, any thoughts here on Cleveland?
I just have thoughts on
I know they're not your team, but
I have thoughts on the small market type of stuff that you're right. I think, I even did this. You brought up the Cavs stuff part of it. I know we're talking baseball, but that was a good example that, trades were so quick to say right when the trade happens within 5-10 minutes, this is a bad return. This is a good return. We don't know that until it works out, especially in baseball when you're getting prospects. You don't know that for a couple years. You don't. And unfortunately, with Cleveland, they found that out within a year with the two guys you're talking about. But
more like 6 months. I mean,
but I even said this with the Cavs part of it. Wait and see what happens. It started with that Kyrie trade. That's when it all started to fall apart. I hate to keep bringing this up that Matt brought this part of it up, but do you like that Jordan Clarkson trade now? I know we didn't like it at the time, but we love it now.
Right.
Look what it brought us.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't bring it right away, but we had to make some other trades to figure it out.
I was pretty mad.
Look what happens.
Happened the first. I was pretty mad. I was heated.
Especially when we were there the night before and he puts up 40 plus, and then they trade him away next day. Yeah,
Off the bench.
Right.
Off the bench.
Are you mad about it now?
That ticket shock.
No, I'm all right now.
Yeah, but no. Yeah, you're right. You love the move now, but it's that initial sticker shock. When you see that price tag at the store, you're like, oh my God, can something really be worth what we just gave up?
Well,
and you bring that thing home and you go, oh, yeah, no, I've needed this. I needed this. This is great.
Well, it's like the part of it too with the small market stuff, because we both are fans of small market teams. With Lindor going away at the time, everybody's like, oh, Cleveland doesn't pay anybody. But now, like you said, you got two other guys that are solid players. When Pittsburgh trades away McCutchen, everybody's like, oh, they should have kept McCutchen. Well, you like Brian Reynolds, don't you? They wouldn't have got Brian Reynolds without the McCutchen trade. That type of stuff happens. It happens with small market teams. You're going to have players in and out all the time. Yeah. We see with Cleveland gets people at the deadline, the free agents, they most of the time they don't stay, but people are coming in all and out. That's why you have to have good farm systems. When people are going to leave, you bring guys up. It's deep enough where you can still make trades and try to get somebody else to try to win a pennant. That's how it has to work.
Yeah, I mean, we will begin we will learn to love these new guys coming in. We'll be huge fans of everybody. But still, they'll be there for shifts. It just comes in shifts.
But still, they'll be there for 3 years and they'll leave. They'll get traded. They'll walk out. That's just how it happens. It's a revolving door.
Well, I mean, I think it's funny. We're talking about Josh Bell because I thought he was still with the Pirates. I completely forgot that he got moved.
And the Nationals got a better return for
him. Big name players. They're only there a couple of years.
And they got a better return than the Pirates did. Nationals.
Yep.
What are you gonna do?
Sucks to suck, man. But we still got a big couple names left on the board. Wilson Contreras to the Chicago Cubs, still out there. There's good potential that the Mariners potentially make that move for the older catcher. David Robertson also off the Cubs. Ian Happ also off the Cubs. Did we see Syndergaard get moved already?
Not that I saw.
Okay, well, he's one of those names on that list so far. From the Angels potentially get moved off. And we know they're not moving Ohtani, so I think potentially you don't see them move Syndergaard as well. They're kind of playing stagnant right now, so I don't think they're going to make any big moves. Eovaldi from the Red Sox potentially on the market. JD Martinez. Tyler Mahle from Cincinnati. That's a big name that I think I've heard bounced around a couple times that I think a lot of people would like to see get moved.
I don't know if you brought it up, but Joey Gallo is going to the Dodgers.
Is that official? I saw rumors.
It says right here, Dodgers to acquire Joey Gallo.
Okay. Yeah, because I heard they were interested.
Did you say Boston got Eric Hosmer out here there?
Yeah.
Yes, cool. Boston acquired Eric Hosmer. Rest is getting situated. The Yankees acquired right-hand pitcher Clayton Beeter for Joey Gallo as well.
All right.
And then other trades we've had so far in the morning, Toronto and Miami. Toronto sent Jordan Groshans, and they received right-hand pitcher Anthony Bass and Zach Pop. Then we saw Minnesota and Baltimore make moves earlier. Minnesota got George Lopez, and Baltimore got Yenier Cano, Cade Pavich, Juan Nunez, and Juan Rojas.
Cool.
Yeah, there's been a lot of moves.
Man, how about Quintana going to the Cardinals, man? They trade him there.
Oh. I don't care. They got a good return. I don't care where he goes if they get a good return.
All right. That is true.
I can't stand the Cardinals, but I know I was talking about in the group chat. You're talking about a guy that stunk the last couple of years. They bring him in just for a rental and try to be a veteran for young pitchers, try to flip him the deadline. To me, they did the best they could with this trade. They throw in Chris Stratton, but I'm okay losing him. But you bring in a power hitter with Nunez, who had, like I said in the group chat last night, 17 home runs this year. He has 14 of them coming June and July. So it's been the bulk of the year that he's hit it in the middle of the year. And you bring in a reliever who, if they want to, they can put in the bullpen right now. And they probably will after losing Chris Stratton this trade too. I also heard too, and I love this part of it, Max. You know I don't like the Cardinals. I even saw on Twitter that a lot of Cardinal fans are kind of not happy with what they gave up for this Quintana trade. So that part of it says something too. Already, Nunez, he comes in. This trade was last night. He comes in as an 11th best prospect. So adjusted from MLB Pipeline, they adjust that. So coming in right now, he's the 11th best prospect in the system.
I do know the Phillies are looking for another pitcher in their rotation. I bet you Syndergaard would be their best fit there. They also talked about maybe trying to get Plesac from Cleveland as well. But looks like we're going to keep on to Zach Plesac. Thank God. But
I wouldn't mind moving him either.
Plesac? Well, I mean, I just got his jersey like 2 years ago.
Okay, the Guardians don't care about that. They don't care about Matt Morrison.
Oh, Matt got a jersey. We can't send him out. Sorry, guys. No,
we can't.
We can't trade Zach Plesac. Matt got a jersey.
Every jersey that I have, they're all gone.
Well, stop getting jerseys, damn it. You're the reason why all the players are gone.
Listen, I bought a bunch of plain ones too, so we're good on that one.
That's why I have a Pirate jersey that's plain with no name on it. That's the best jersey to have when you're a Pirate fan.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
You just have to get somebody you like where you saw him play with Mahoning Valley or you saw him at Ohio State or your favorite college. Where that's how you get. That's why I got a Browns Denzel Ward jersey, because no matter where he goes, he was Ohio State first before he was anything else.
Actually, he was high school before anything else.
Well,
they don't sell high school jerseys, but I don't know, Matt. I don't think it would have been a bad idea to trade Plesac. He hasn't been that great this year.
Ohio, though. He played at Nordonia High School, which is actually in my conference in high school. So,
is it really?
See that?
Yeah, Suburban League.
There you go.
Oh, gotta get a Zach DeCenzo jersey. Ohio State baseball, and he got drafted by the Astros, and he played for the Scrappers.
There you go. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Got to trace the roots back so that even after they're gone, you're like, well, I still have this connection.
I mean, just because he got drafted by the Astros doesn't mean he's going to play for them. Maybe he's like Cleveland will pick him up.
Cleveland's going to trade for him.
Yeah. We can use a first baseman.
Everyone can use a first baseman.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. We'll figure out what goes on with the deadline as we come to a close in 3 hours. So tomorrow, we'll talk all the final moves of the MLB season. And then I think maybe we make some post-trade deadline predictions for who's going to win the whole thing. Mike's already got his money on the Astros, though. So we'll see how everything turns out. Power Hour coming up next on Your Sports Network. I'm Alec Berta. That's Matt Morrison and Mike Wolfgang. It's the Casual Sports Podcast. We'll see you tomorrow.